So welcome everybody to this latest video on 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be going over the AQA GCSE November 2017 Higher Paper 1, which is a non-calculus paper. Now we'll include a copy of a link to the paper so you can have an attempt at it if you've not done so already before watching this video and going through the answers, and I'll also include the grade boundaries that once you've tallied up your scores you can see what grade you've attained by completing this paper. So let's get started on this AQA November 2017 Higher Paper 1, which is a non-calculus paper. So looking at question 1, it says work out what 2 to the power of 6 plus 6 squared actually is, and square rooted. So 2 to the power of 6 is going to be 64, 6 squared is 36, and if we square root that we get square root of 100, which is 10. Then for question 2, 800 million in standard form. Well, 800 is 8 times 10 to the power 2, and a million is 10 to the power 6. So here we add the powers of 10, so that becomes 8 times 10 to the power of 8. For question 3, it says circle the expression that is equivalent to 4a to the power 5 squared. So we've got 4a to the power 5 times 4a to the power 5. 4 times 4 is 16. And a to the power 5 times a to the power 5 is a to the power of 10, which gives us our first option. So for question 4, it says y equals 10 over x. If the value of x doubles, what happens to the value of y? Well, if that doubles, then basically it's going to be divided by 2. Then for question 5a, it's a case of dots, a difference of 2 squares, in which then we set up our 2 brackets. What do you have to square to get x squared? X. What do you have to square to get 100? 10. One's a plus, one's a minus, and it doesn't matter what order you put those brackets. Then for question 5b, it says solve 7x plus 6 is greater than 1 plus 2x for 2 marks. So for 1 mark, what you want to do is group all the x's together, so we get 5x plus 6 is greater than 1. Then 5x plus, or not plus, and we take the 6 over, so then that becomes minus 5, and then we divide by 5, giving us a final answer of x is greater than minus 1, or you could write your answer as minus 1 is less than x. So any of those two answers would be absolutely fine. Then moving on to question 6, it says work out the value of root 3 squared plus times root 2 squared. So root 3 squared is root 9 times root 2 squared, which is root 4, and root 9 is 3, root 4 is 2, so it's 3 times 2, which is 6. For question 7, it says here is a quarter circle with a radius of 6. Write down the area of the quarter circle, giving your answer in terms of pi. So here the area of a full circle is pi r squared, and as it's a quarter we divide that by 4. So completing that formula, we get 6 squared times pi over 4, which is 36 pi divided by 4, and 36 divided by 4 is 9 pi. And where the 2 marks come from is basically 1 mark for writing down the formula and then 1 mark for the correct answer. And with question 8, it says 3 whole numbers, each rounded to the nearest 10. The sum of the rounded numbers is 70. Work out the maximum possible sum of the 3 numbers. Now for this, when you're rounding to the nearest integer, then your range will, the number will start with a 5 and will go up and end in a 4. So that means that these 3 numbers, the maximum number they can be is going to be ended up in as a 4. So that means then we've got 3 numbers. That's going to be plus 4, that's going to be plus 4, and that's going to be plus 4, giving us an extra 12. Now if these numbers rounded add up to 70, the maximum they could add up to, the unrounded, could be another 12, giving us an answer of 82. I was going to write 84 there, but it's 82. And where the 1 mark would come from is evidence that you've got plus 12, and then adding 12 to the 70 gives us 82. Then for question 9, it says circle the expression for the range of n consecutive integers, and that's simply going to be n minus 1. That, all I would suggest is that you just, in your head, think of some consecutive numbers like a different list, work out the range, and then hopefully you'll spot a pattern of what that actually is, where n is the number of numbers. Moving on to question 10, it says 3 identical isosceles triangles are joined to make a trapezium. Each triangle has a base b centimeters and a perpendicular height of h. Work out an expression in terms of b and h, the area of the trapezium. Give your answer in its simplest form. Now, when working out the area of a trapezium, you need to know what this length here is, what this length here is, and what the height is. So here my a is the top one. B is going to be, well, it's going to be 2 lots of B. So here, looking at the area, it's going to be B plus 2B multiplied by H, all divided by 2. So simplifying the brackets, I get 3BH divided by 2, and that there is my final answer. So here we get 3BH over 2. Then moving on to the next question, it says diagram shows the same trapezium, and it says B to S is in the ratio of 2 to 3. So here what we need to do is we need to work out, and we need to write an expression for the perimeter of the trapezium in terms of B. So what I need to do first is convert S in terms of B. So looking at this ratio here, I've got B over S is going to be equal to 2 over 3, and I want to make S the subject, so I can cross multiply, so it gives me 3B equals 2S, so 3B divided by 2 equals S, or 1.5B equals S. So this I can scrap and call that 1.5B. This I know is B, this I know is B, and this is going to be the same as the other side, so it's 1.5B. So that means that the perimeter then is going to be B plus 1.5B plus B plus B plus 1.5B, giving me a total perimeter of 6B. Now let's just write that. Where you'd get the 1 mark is recognizing that S is equal to 1.5B, and then 1 mark for 6B. Then moving on to our next question, question 11, it says 4 candidates in election were A, B, C and D. The pie chart shows the proportion of the votes for each candidate. Work out the probability that a person who voted, chosen at random, voted for C. Now we don't know what the total amount of people who voted for, so what we're going to do is we're just going to assume that the total number of voters is 360, because that's the only information that we know from this pie chart, which is that angles in a pie chart total up to 360. So what I need to do first is add up all of those angles. So I've got 90 plus X plus 2X plus 10 plus 2X, all add up to 360. Now if I simplify the left hand side, I get 5x plus 100 equals 360, and so 5x equals 260, and then x equals 260 divided by 5, which is 52. Now for candidate C, the angle is 2x plus 10, so 2x plus 10. So here I've got 2 times 52 plus 10, so 2 times 52 is 104, plus 10 gives me an answer of 114. Now the question is asking what's the probability. Well, it's going to be 114 divided by 360, or we can simplify that as 19 over 60. So any of those two fractions would be fine for the 4 marks. Now I would say that you would get probably 2 marks for working out that x equals 52, 1 mark for 114, and 1 mark for your final answer. Then for question 12, it says use approximations to 1 sig fig to estimate the value of. So for this, for 3 marks, I would say that you'd probably lose a mark for, you'd gain a mark definitely for rounding all the numbers up to 1 sig fig. So you should have something that looks like this. Then we're looking at 0.5 times 1600, all divided by 10. So that gives me 800 divided by 10, giving me a final answer of 80. So I would say 1 mark for that, 1 mark for that, and 1 mark for your final answer. Then moving on to question 13, it says that x to y is in the ratio of 7 to 4, and x plus y equals 88. Work out the value of x minus y. So taking this first, what we get is we get x over y equals 7 over 4, and if we cross multiply we get 4x equals 7y, or we get that x equals 7y over 4, and I'm just going to put a little bubble around that. So from this, what we then do is substitute it into this formula. So I know that rather than using x, I'm going to use 7y over 4. So 7y over 4 plus y equals 88. Then if I get a common denominator in terms of 7y over 4 plus 4y over 4 equals 88, I then get 11y over 4 equals 88. And then 11y equals 4 times 88, which is 352, giving me a y value of 32. Now if y equals 32, so then using x plus y equals 88, I get x plus 32 equals 88. So x equals 56. And then taking away those two numbers, 56 minus 32 gives me a final answer of 24. Now I've probably gone the really long way of going about this, but I would say where you'd get the marks is 1 mark for getting that y equals 32, 1 mark for y, x equals 56, and 1 mark for your final answer. Then for question 14, it says two congruent regular polygons are joined together, and we've got this angle here which is 60. They work out the number of sides from each polygon. So here, to work out the number of sides, what we need to do is use the formula of 360 divided by the exterior angle. Now, what we need to appreciate that 60 degrees combines two exterior angles, which is 30. So from one polygon, we've got 360 divided by 30. Cancel the zeros. 36 divided by 3 gives me an answer of 12. Now for the 3 marks, I'd say 1 mark definitely for the 12, 1 mark for recognizing that you've got 30 degrees, and 1 mark for the use of the formula. Then looking at question 15, it says that a meal deal, choose 1 sandwich, 1 drink and 1 snack. There are 7 different sandwiches, 5 different drinks and 3 different snacks. How many different meal deal combinations are there? So for this, what we need to do is simply multiply the number of options from each other. So 7 times 5 times 3, which gives me an answer of 105, and you get 1 mark for those two. And then for question 15b, it says 2 sandwiches have cheese in them, 3 drinks are fizzy. Either picks a meal deal at random. Write down the probability that a sandwich has cheese in it and a drink is fizzy. Give your answer as a fraction. So here we've got 2 out of 7 sandwiches, and we've got 3 out of 5 drink options. So I would say you get 1 mark for that, and then we get 6 over 35. That can't be simplified, so that there is my final answer. Then with question 16, it says water is poured into a tank. The graph shows the number of litres of water in the tank. How much water is poured into the tank each minute? So if we just work out 1 point, so for example, let's go for 4 and 60, because we know that's definitely a point there. So we get 60 litres in 4 minutes. And if we divide both numbers by 4, we get 15 litres equals 1 minute. And so our option is 15 litres. Then with question 17, it says A and B are similar solids. Alex says that the volume of B is double the volume of A because the length of B is doubled in the length of A. So is he correct at the box? And the question here we need to tick is no. And the reason for that is if the length scale factor is K, or in this case 2, then the volume, oh, don't know what happened there. Then the volume scale factor will be K cubed, so therefore giving it 8, not double. The next question then says, circle the 2 roots of 2x plus 3, 5x minus 2 equals 0. Well, it's already been factorized, so here one root is going to be where we solve this, the other root is going to be where we solve this. So this gives me 2x minus 3, x equals minus 3 over 2, which is our first option. And then with this one, we get 5x equals 2, x equals 2 over 5, which is our third option. Then with question 19, it says the diagram shows a triangle and a trapezium. Prove that A equals B. So for this one, what we need to do is that we just need to look at angle fact. So one angle fact is using all of these. So we know that A plus 65 plus C plus 115 equals 360, and the reason for that is angles around a point equals 360. So simplifying all of this, we get A plus C equals and it's going to be 180, and so let's just put a little box around that. Now we also can see that as we've got a trapezium, that A and B are supplementary angles or co-interior. So A plus B equals 180, and the reason for that is either you can say that they're supplementary or co-interior. and here is our another option. So now what I need to do is, I can see that I've got a C in both, but we need to get rid of the C. So if I just rearrange this equation in blue, so I get C equals, and it's going to be 180 minus B. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute this equation here into that C there. So what I've got is I've got A plus, and then it's going to be 180 minus B equals 180. Now getting rid of the brackets, I get this. And then taking the 180 over, I get A minus B equals 0. And then taking the B over the other side, I get A equals B. Now where the 3 marks come from, I would say, and I'm just getting a decent colour, I would say that you get 1 mark for recognising that all those angles around a point add up to 180 and simplify, 1 mark for recognising that C plus B is supplementary and they add up to 180, and then obviously going through the steps of getting A equals B. Then with question 20, it says in 1 month the number of hours of exercise taken by 10 people are, and then we've got load of numbers, which is the appropriate average to use in this situation, tick the box. So the most appropriate one would be the median, and then it says give 1 reason for each of the other 2 averages as to why they're not appropriate. Well, for the mean, the fact that we've got an extremely high number, so for the mean, I don't know why I've put a little line there, so let me just get rid of it. So for the mean, 82 will distort the calculation. And basically it's 82 is an outlier. So something along those lines would be absolutely fine. And then for the mode, well, there is no mode. There's no number that appears more than 1. And even then, out of 10 numbers, and you only have a repeated of 2, I would say it's not really applicable. Now we're looking at question 21. So it says A and B and C are points on the axis as shown. The area of the triangle ABC is 25 square units. Work out the possible coordinates of A, B and C. So what we've got here is we've got a triangle, and we've got the height, and we've got the base. And we know that B times H divided by 2 equals 28. So BH is going to equal 56. So what I need to do is I need to find 2 numbers that multiply together to give me 56. Now there are loads of different numbers. You could have decimals, you could have any combination that multiplies to give you 56. So I would say the most common examples would be 8 and 7. So let's imagine that this length here is 8, and this length here is going to be 7. Now from this, if we know that the length of O to C is going to be 7, then this coordinate here is going to be 7, 0. That's set in stone. So I could go down and just write 7, 0, and that is not going to be a problem. Now for the next one, this length here has got to be 8. Now one thing I recognize is that A has got to be positive and B is got to be negative, but the difference between those 2 numbers has got to be 8. So I could have any sort of arrangement of let's say for 4 and minus 4, and that would be absolutely fine. So here we've got 4, actually it's going to be on the other side, so it's going to be 4 here and minus 4 here, and those 2 ordinates are going to be 0. So basically these 2 numbers have got to have a difference of 8, and this number multiplied by those 2 other, let me just highlight that in pink. So this, actually not pink because that's going to be even more confusing, so let me just get rid of those highlighting, and let's go for lilac. So the lilac number multiplied by the sum of the 2 yellow numbers have got to multiply to give you 56 for this to be true. So moving on to question 22, it says here is some information about miles per gallon of 60 cars, and the question is asking us to draw a cumulative frequency diagram. So first things first, let's calculate our cumulative frequency values. So you should have 6, 22, 50 and 60. Let me just make that 50 look like 50. And there we go. Now the next one, what we then need to do, and I don't know why they've put an extra column in there, maybe just to confuse, think you're doing a histogram, I'm not too sure. So the next thing we then need to do is plot this properly. Now remember that when you are plotting a cumulative frequency, you always plot on the upper bound and you're plotting your cumulative frequency values. So from this, I would say working out your cumulative frequency values would be 1 mark. Your next mark comes from correct plotting. So here at 50, we've got, well, we start at 40, so that's at 0. 50 is at 6, and 60 is at 16. 70 is at 50, and 80 is at 60. And then what you want to do is carefully join the points up, making sure that your curve goes through each of the plotted points, like so. And you get 1 mark for joining those points up. The next question then says, use the graph to work out the interquartile range. So my lower quartile is going to be at 60 divided by 4, which is 15. So I'm drawing a line at 15, and it looks to me to be about 60. And then I'm drawing one at 45, and then moving down, and it looks to be around about 68. So this is my upper quartile, which is at 45. My lower quartile is at 15. And then so the IQR is where we subtract those numbers. So I've got 68, take away from 60, gives me an answer of 8. So looking at question 24, it says, here is a cyclic quadrilateral, and it says x to y is in the ratio of 5 to 7. Work out the size of angle W. So here we know that. Let's have a look at some of the rules. We know using the ratio that I've been given. So to find W, I need to work out what x is first. So let's have a look and see how we go about doing that. So here we've got x to y equals 5 to 7. So just like before, we can write this as a fraction, and then we cross multiply to get 7x equals 5y. And I'm just going to put a little box around that. Now another equation I can work out using x and y's is that opposite angles in a cyclic quadrilateral add up to 180. So x plus y equals 180. So if I rearrange this, what I get is 7x minus 5y equals 0. And then what I then want to do is use simultaneous equations to solve, find out what x and, or particularly x and y is. So here I've got 7x minus 5y equals 0, and x plus y equals 180. Now if I multiply this equation by 5, I get 5x plus 5y equals 180 times 5 is 900. Then if I write the second equation again, equals 0, and I take away the two equations, I end up with minus 2x equals 900. And I need to add them, sorry. So then that's going to be 12x equals 900. So from this I get x equals 75 degrees. Now I don't necessarily need to work out y, so using then these two angles, so x plus 20 plus w equals 180. I know that x equals 75, so 75 plus 20 plus w equals 180. 95 plus w equals 180, so w equals 85 degrees, and there is my final answer. Then for question 25, it says 15 machines work at the same rate. Together, the 15 machines can complete an order in 8 hours. 3 of the machines break down after working 6 hours. The other machines carry on working until the order is complete. In total, how many hours did each of the other machines work? So let's first of all work out what the total number of hours is going to be for the job. So that's going to be 15 times 8, which gives me an answer of 120 hours. So we need 120 hours. One machine needs to be running for 120 hours to complete this job. So for this, we get 120 minus, now 3 of the machines only work for 3 hours. So then what we've got is we've got 120, take away 18 gives me 102 hours for, and we've got 12 machines. So what we then do is 102 divided by 12, and we can do that a number of ways. So we can simplify it, so we get 51 over 6. So then I've got 6 over 51. How many 6s go into there? That's going to be 0. Don't know why I've put a decimal point there, so let's get rid of that decimal point. and then we carry the 5, that then becomes 8, there's the 0, there's the decimal point, and then that becomes 5, so it's going to be 8.5 hours. Then for question 26a, it says 0.7 recurring is 7 over 9. Use the facts to show that 0.07 recurring equals 7 over 90. So here we get that 0.7 divided by 10 gives me 0.07 recurring. Now if I convert both these as fractions, so that's 7 over 9 divided by 10, which is 10 over 1, and then I can then, using my knowledge of dividing fractions, I flip the second fraction, which I've not done, and it then turns to a times, and that gives me 7 over 90, which is what they wanted me to show. Then for question 26b, it says for using part A or otherwise convert 0.27 recurring into a fraction. So using part A, what we get is we get that 0.27 recurring equals, and it's going to be 0.2 plus 0.07 recurring. This as a fraction is 2 over 10 plus, and then it's 7 over 90. And then if I get a common denominator, times that the bottom one by 9, so I get 18 over 90 plus 7 over 90 gives me an answer of 18 plus 7, which is 25 over 90. Simplify that as a fraction, and which I need to do, and I get 5 over 18. Now if I wasn't doing it completely, then if I make x equal to 0.27 recurring, I then multiply that by 10, so I get 2.7 recurring, multiply it by 100, and I get 27.7 recurring. Then if I take away these two away from each other, I end up with minus 90x equals minus 25, so x equals minus 25 over 90, which is 25 over 90, which gives me the same answer of 5 over 18. Then moving on to question 27, it says that there are 11 pens in a box, 3 are black and 3 are red. 2 pens are taken at random without replacement. Work out the probability that 2 pens are the same colour. So first pen can either be black or red, and then my second pen could either be black or red, black or red. Now in terms of having the same colour, well, I'm either going to have red and red or black and black. So just simply writing on the formulas here, so we get 11 pens to start with, 11 are black, so we've got 8 over 11, and this is going to be 3 over 11. Then in the second pick, I'm always going to end up with 1 less, so I've only got 10 left to pick. From the black, I've already selected 1, so that's going to be 7, and I've still got 3 red pens left. If red pen is selected, I've still got all 8 black pens left, but I've only got 1 less red pen. So in terms of R and R, that's going to be 3 over 11 times 2 over 10 plus, and then black is going to be 8 over 11 times 7 over 10. Then if I simplify each of those, 3 times 2 is 6, 11 times 10 is 110, 8 times 7 is 56, and that's going to be 110. Give me a total of 62 over 110. And does that should simplify because they're both even numbers, and that gives me an answer of 31 over 55. Then looking at question 28, it says that question 28 says A, B and C are points in the circle x squared plus y squared equals 36. A is on the y-axis, B is on the x-axis, M is the midpoint of AB, and COM is a straight line. Show that the coordinates A is 0, 6. Well, here we know that from this that the radius r squared equals 36, so r is going to equal square root of 36. It can't be negative, so r has got to be 6. And if the radius is 6, so we know that OA equals the radius, so the distance between O to A equals 6, and that's why the coordinate is 0, 0, 6. Now work out B, well that's going to be virtually the same, so that's going to be 6, 0. just with the other way around. Now the next question then says, show that the equation of the straight line passing through COM is y equals x. Now for this one, what we need to do first is work out the gradient of AB. So the gradient of AB is going to be 6 minus 0 over 0 minus 6, which is minus 1, which makes sense. Now O to M is the midpoint, so that means that this is going to be perpendicular. So therefore the gradient of OM is going to be minus 1 over minus 1, which is positive 1. So then using the equation of a line, y equals mx plus c, we know that the coordinate it passes through is 0, 0. So that's my x, that's my y, and we know that m equals 1. So I get 0 equals 1x plus c. So c equals, actually that's going to be x is 0, so that's going to be 0. So c equals 0. So therefore the equation of the line is y equals x. Then the next part then says work out the coordinates of C, give your answers in surd form. So if I go back to this question, the diagram here, now what I want to do is first, let me just get rid of all of this, just so that we are creating a bit of space. So from this, what we know is, we know that this length here is 6, because we already know that. So now we know that this, if we just call those two sides x, I know that using Pythagoras that x squared plus x squared equals 6 squared. So 2x squared equals 36. So x squared equals 18. So x equals the square root of 18. So that's what this length here is going to be. Now that length there is at root 18. And that length there is also going to be at root 18. So for this, what we then know that this length C is going to be therefore at that distance there is going to be minus root 18, and this distance here is going to be minus root 18 as well. So here that we've then got our coordinates, which is, just move that down here. So we can either write the answer as minus root 18 minus root 18, or you can write it in a simplified surd as minus 3 root 2 minus 3. Again, do not know what's happened there. Minus 3 root 2. Then moving on to question 29, it says here is a sketch of y equals sine x for the range of minus 360 to 360, and what we need to do is to state the values or coordinates of p and q. So labeling this up, we know that the limits on the y-axis is minus 1 to 1, and we know that it's got intervals of 90 and 360. So that's at minus 90, that's at minus 180, that's at minus 270, and that's at minus 360. So here p is going to have a coordinate of, and it's going to be 0, 180 and 0, and q is going to have a coordinate of minus 270 and 1. Then moving on to question 30, A, it says work out the value of 81 to the power of minus a quarter. Well, then that becomes, so again, when you've got your fractional power, B is the power and C is the root, and the negative basically means the reciprocal. So what this then turns into is 1 over 81 to the power of a quarter, which then becomes 1 over the quart root of 81 to the power of 1, and that then becomes a third. Now for question 30b, what we need to do, it says write 16 times 8 to the power of 2x as a power of 2 in terms of x. Well, for this, what we need to do is convert 16 and 8 as powers of 2. So 16 is 2 to the power of 4, and 8 is 2 to the power of 3. So if I substitute those in, I get 2 to the power of 4 times 2 to the power of 3 to the power of 2x. Now here, the first one's doing absolutely nothing, whereas here where I've got brackets, I multiply the two powers. So that gives me 2 to the power of 6x. And then what do we do to the powers when we multiply them? Well, we add them. So then the answer then is 2 to the power of 4 plus 6x, or 2 to the power of 6x plus 4, whichever floats your boat. And there is a final answer and the end of this paper. Now we'll put the grade boundaries in the description below to see that once you've marked your paper, you can then see what grade you've attained on this individual paper from grades 9 to 3.